Have you ever wondered why some content creators seem to effortlessly connect with their audience while others struggle to get their message across? Well, in this video, I'm going to be sharing 21 actionable takeaways from the book, The 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication. This is probably one of the most essential books that every content creator should read, but most don't even know about it. Whether you read the book or not, I'm going to share the best takeaways with you in this video, and stick around for an interview with the author where he reveals even more right after the 21 tips.
You gotta just press record.
One of the things we do on YouTube is we are trying to take 8 hours of research and put it into an 8-minute video. Well, the only way to do that is if you master and learn the law of simplicity. I think one of the biggest mistakes that content creators can make is they think that just because of good editing or good lighting, they're entitled to viewership and entitled to people caring. The better approach is the opposite approach. You know that I don't recommend starting a podcast. I recommend starting a video podcast because of the visual element. Could you level up your video with B-roll, with supplemental clips and footage, with drawings, with props, with animation? This book is the cheat code for creating better content. It's packed with practical tips for content creators, including 10 ways to immediately improve your videos and get more views, 3 powerful laws of communication and how to apply them, why your current videos are not getting views and how to fix them, and then tips for mastering the ultimate skill for building a personal brand and a profitable online business. The book is The 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication by John Maxwell. And I read it so you ultimately don't have to, but of course, if you want to check it out on audio or the physical book, we'll link it up in the description down below. But why is communication so important? Well, according to Harvard Business Review, the top criterion for professional advancement is effective communication. I think we realize that essentially what YouTube videos are communication. If you're going to be on camera, or even if you're not on camera with a faceless channel, if you improve as a communicator, your videos will improve. Warren Buffett emphasizes the value of honing communication skills for personal and professional growth. And he talks about that as being the peak skill necessary for earning more. And so today we're going to cover 3 of the 16 laws and some tactical tips underneath each of those. And again, if you want to check them all out, pick up the book. Number 1, the law of content. This states that when we have something worth saying, people will listen. I think one of the biggest mistakes that content creators can make is they think that just because of good editing or good lighting, or just because they make a video, they're entitled to viewership and entitled to people caring. I think that the better approach is the opposite approach. We should feel like we are not entitled to views, not entitled to subscribers, not entitled to people's attention, and that we have to earn it, that we have to work for it, that we actually have to come up with something that is worth saying. And I mentioned 10 ways to immediately improve your videos. This law is packed full of practical tips, and here are a few. Great communicators bridge the success gap and relate to their audience. One of the most powerful things you can do in your videos is understand that people want to know about your struggle before they are open to learning from your success. Videos that just brag or just talk about the result without the struggle fall flat from making a true connection with viewers. Hopefully on YouTube, if you are sharing an answer to a problem, if you're helping people reach their goals, you're not just telling them the solution. By the way, that will please people, and there's no reason you can't get views from that. But if you want to strengthen your content, you want to bridge the success gap. Are you articulating your struggle? Think about it. When you hear a public speaker, if all they get up on stage and do is brag about how successful they are, it actually builds a wall. But if at first they relate that they've been there, they've struggled, they've also been through the process, and through pain and trial and hardship, they have found a solution, and now they want to share that solution with you. If you can weave that into your content, it'll be more powerful. Start any message by understanding your audience's perspective. Whew! Here's the question. Before you sit down and outline your video, do you truly understand who your audience is? Do you truly understand their feelings, emotions, needs? We say at Think Media, the creator who understands the viewer best wins. So if you're going to start a video, you want to understand your audience's desires, perspective, point of view, beliefs. And the big mistake is 99% of content creators don't even know who they're making content for. And even if they think they do, a lot of times there's a disconnect in that area. Identify and operate within your strength zones for credibility. It's a good content tip. If you try to create content about something you're not strong at, you're going to lose to somebody who's stronger at that content. Personally, I try to stay in my lane. There's a lot of things where I'm happy to go on a video podcast and be interviewed about. And there's many things where I have no clue about. When I think about my strength zones, if you want to talk about YouTube, let's go. If you want to talk about business, let's go. Marketing, let's go. If you want to talk about the Bible, let's go. If you want to talk about politics, I don't know. If you want to talk about pop culture, I kind of know. I'm not going to go work at BuzzFeed. I'm not going to go work at TMZ. Those are not my strength zones or my passion zones. And so you're going to have maximum credibility when you operate within your strength zone. Have a clear thesis for your message. It's the core of communication. Are you starting each video with a clear thesis? And one of the things I loved about this book is, again, I was thinking about how it applied to YouTube videos, but you don't hear a lot of people using that language, which it reminded me being back in English class in high school. I was like, that's true. A video should have a clear thesis. It should have a core to its communication. And are you trying to communicate too many things in one video? Is the point unclear in the video? Is your communication generally foggy? Clarity is power. So do you have a clear thesis? Another point here is research is crucial, both for specific talks and for continued personal growth. One of the ways to power up your content is to improve your research. So how can you invest more in research, develop your skill of research? And I liked that John highlighted the benefit of it not just being powerful for the content itself, but also helpful for your continual growth. One of the things I love, because I actually am passionate about YouTube and video marketing and social media, is I've created a job that I enjoy doing, meaning I like to research about YouTube, but when I do, I get smarter and I grow my knowledge, and I include that in videos, and you get to benefit, and I get stronger. Hopefully the content gets better. It's cool to be in a position where the monetization loop is helpful to fund being able to do this full time. And I know that that's also what your aspiration is as well in your particular area. But I want to encourage you to the development of the skill of research and the inclusion of good research in your content will make it stronger. Outlining provides a structure for your message. Can you outline your videos? Numbering your points or using mnemonic devices can make your message memorable. Can you number your points? That's why we're doing 3 points today as well, by the way. And a lot of times I like to outline and have numbers so there's structure to the content. And then mnemonic devices could be something like in our tech episode, we talked about AVL, audio, video, lighting. Maybe your points are connected to a framework of some kind. In fact, we're going to talk about the 4 H's, the 4 primary connection points of communication in just a second. It's 4 H's. It's kind of a mnemonic device that John created that we'll touch in just a second. Craft messages using research, illustrations, and stories from your own life. There's a couple ways to power things up. And I love this. Every message is like an airplane flight requiring a successful takeoff and landing. Good takeoffs can be built using questions, quotes, connections, while landings should summarize and empower the audience. Now, there is an old joke at Think Media that I'm always landing the plane and that I'm, taxiing to the terminal, and that we're stuck on the tarmac and that we're circling the airport, and this joke that I can't land the plane. But every message is like an airplane flight, and those are some powerful tips for hooks. Can you open with a question? Can you open with a powerful quote? Can you open by making some kind of connection? Of course, the goal in communication is to connect with the viewer here on YouTube. And so we've already covered a lot, and we have 2 full more laws to go through and the 4 primary connection points. But here's a summary of the bullets I just hit. Can you relate in your content? Do you understand your audience's perspective? Can you play to your strength zones? Do you have a clear thesis? Are you doing your research? Do you have a good outline for your content? Are you numbering your points? Can you include illustrations? Can you include stories? And every communication is like an airplane flight. There's 10 little nuggets under the law of content. And before we go to the next law, here's the 4 primary connection points of communication: heart, help, humor, and hope. And so it's crucial to identify and lead with your best connecting strength. So which of these 4 is your strongest? Heart. This means genuine, heartfelt communication based on empathy and authenticity. I think we can all improve our content. This is a cheat code for content creators. If your videos can be more authentic and you're not faking it, you're comfortable in your own skin, you've figured out your own voice, when you've got empathy for the viewer and that's communicated through the camera, when you're speaking from the heart and you're being genuine, and this might take some time to develop, not only in the skill of communication, but getting aligned with the topics you're covering with your channel topic. Heart is a superpower. And for some of us, that might be your primary superpower, or for others, it might be a little bit more of a weakness. So let me know if that's yours. Help involves offering practical advice and tools for change. This is probably one that I lean to. I want to develop them all, but I am obsessed with crafting content that's actually helpful, that's value-based, that answers specific questions, that solves specific problems. Humor is about seeing the lighter side of life and connecting through laughter. If you have a gift of humor, that's a powerful way to improve your content. Hope entails showing future possibilities, inspiring belief in a better future. Maybe some people you watch because you feel encouraged after, strengthened after. Your purpose in watching is to get your mind right, your motivation up, to get your mood shifted, your emotions charged. And so 4 elements: heart, help, humor, and hope. One of those is probably your strongest, but if you improve even marginally all 4 and have a heartfelt message that solves someone's problem, that makes them laugh in the process, and that ends with giving them hope, talk about a powerful message, a powerful YouTube video. But let's hit number 2, the law of simplicity. The law of simplicity. Einstein suggested that if you can't explain something simply, you might not understand it well enough. So effective, simple communication requires significant effort. It's easier to be verbose than to be concise. The reason I wanted to include this law is I actually think that this is one of the ultimate opportunities for YouTube content creators. One of the things we do on YouTube is we are trying to make complex things simple. We are trying to take 8 hours of research and put it into an 8-minute video. Well, the only way to do that is if you master and learn the law of simplicity. We're trying to take 8 years of experience and put it into a 45-minute longer form YouTube video or a web class of some kind. The only way you do that is not by being more verbose and more complex and adding more information. You actually do that effectively by simplifying content down. And a lot of the channels I review or the creators that I give feedback to struggle because they're over communicating, they're adding too much information. A lot of times their content is full of too much data, not enough story. They have not distilled down the content. And according to Einstein, if you can't explain something simply, you got to work harder. You might not understand it well enough. So I really emphasized, and it stood out to me, that John Maxwell was like, effective, simple communication requires significant effort. If you think this is hard, good, because it is. And the reason you'll be rewarded with views and subscribers and channel growth is because you did something really hard. You processed and you thought and you wrote it and you rewrote it. And when it wasn't quite clear, you kept working until the clarity was tangible. You're like, whoa, that's very complex. And I found a simple way to communicate that. Also remember that the most effective messaging when it comes to the internet, social media, this is one of the points. Clarity should be the first goal. If an 8th grader can't understand and explain your message, it isn't simple enough. Law of simplicity. So you're going to see bigger growth on your YouTube channel if you've been communicating maybe at a too complex level, 10th grade, 12th grade, PhD. Well, there's a reason why it's not working at a broad appeal level, because if an 8th grader can't understand it, then make it simpler. Clarity should be your first goal. And I love this quote from Woodrow Wilson. He was asked, how long will it take you to prepare to give a great talk or a public speech? And he said, it depends. If I am to speak for 10 minutes, I need a week for preparation. If 15 minutes, I need 3 days. If a half an hour, 2 days. If an hour, I am ready now. Let that sink in. If I am to speak for 10 minutes, I need a week for preparation. 10 minutes is a YouTube video. If I am to speak for an hour, I can do it right now. 1 hour is a live stream. What's the point? It's crazy that this quote was said before YouTube existed. It just speaks to high quality communication is challenging. And if you want to make 10 viral minutes of content on YouTube, imagine if you put a week into that. If you understand your message, but you really aren't refining it, well, hey, let's go live right now and just, chat. Take 60 minutes to get the message across. Man, it's something powerful about that quote that I think could apply to what it is we are doing. Great communicators prioritize simplifying complex ideas. Simplicity is the hallmark of powerful communication. Winston Churchill and JFK were praised for their clear and powerful speeches. Effective communication is about conveying clear, powerful ideas. C.S. Lewis emphasized translating thoughts into accessible language, suggesting that if you can't, your thoughts may be confused. So can you translate your complex topic or difficult to understand topic into everyday accessible language? And if you can't, maybe you need to work harder to distill your thoughts into more accessible communication, especially if you want broader appeal and bigger impact on YouTube. Brevity is crucial. Impactful statements often require fewer words, like the Lord's Prayer or the Gettysburg Address. Short speeches often require more preparation. Effective communication is about concise, impactful content, not length. John Medea's law of simplicity stresses the importance of focus in communication. Remove the unnecessary, highlight the essential. Imagine if on your next video, you removed the unnecessary and you highlighted the essential. Practicing the law of simplicity in communication means less is more and clarity is power. John Maxwell suggests that we should deliver messages simply, slowly, and with a smile for effective communication. Of course, you have to have your own style, and you might say, but Sean, aren't we doing jump cuts and talking crazy like crazy YouTubers? And I think that you've got to understand your audience. You've got to understand your style of content, and different mediums require different methods. But there is something powerful that if the content is rich and clear and specific and poignant, that sometimes slowing down doesn't mean that you're going to lose the audience's attention. If the video is boring, if the video lacks substance, if the video lacks research, well, it doesn't matter how fast or slow you go. And so I think there's something there as it pertains to delivering your messages simply, slowly, and with a smile for effective communication. And great communicators turn complex topics into simple concepts. All right, so we're about to get into law number 3, and I think this one's actually my favorite. The first law we covered was the law of content. Secondly was the law of simplicity, and third is the law of visual expression. And those are not in order in the book. There's 16 laws in the book. I really can't emphasize enough that this entire book will improve every single YouTube content creator. I know that's a big endorsement, but I totally believe it. The book is packed with tips, and hopefully this is showing you that truth. The law of visual expression states that showing and telling is more impactful than just telling. And this is interesting. While voice-only communication had its place in radio's heyday, it's essential to incorporate visual elements today. The next generation will receive 90% of content on their phones visually, not verbally. And around 60% of people are visual learners, with images sticking better in their memory than words. Now, this is exciting for us as YouTube content creators and creating video across social media platforms, because obviously that's a visual medium. You know that I don't recommend starting a podcast. I recommend starting a video podcasts because of the visual element. And shout out to everybody audio only right now, because of course that is super relevant. We're hanging out as you walk walk your dog, work out, ear pods, the whole thing. Audiobooks, podcasts are a major opportunity. But of course, YouTube is a visual platform. So here's a few tips. Visuals make messages more memorable in a data-saturated society. Images generate more engagement and discussions with people being highly responsive to them. Visual stimuli engages the creative and holistic parts of the brain, shaping future creators and empathizers. Now think about this. If you are visually on screen, that doesn't mean you're including visuals in your video. Could you level up your video with B-roll, with supplemental clips and footage, with drawings, with props, with animation? And maybe you can't do all of that right now, but could you dream a little bit bigger about how you could teach, educate, and entertain with your content? The right side of the brain is adept at processing images, synthesizing information, and seeing the bigger picture. Visuals stimulate our imagination and can tell stories better than mere stats. And so a visual on screen showing some data is one thing, but could you also show a picture of somebody that's been impacted by the data? A B-roll clip of somebody that is the subject of your story. And here's some other practical tips related to what could be done visually. Body movement, gestures, and facial expressions are crucial for visual aids as a communicator. If you are just doing talking head video, just sitting down in a video podcast like this, how could you improve your communication with body movement, gestures, facial expressions? The ambience of the room, lights up or down, can greatly impact the energy and focus of the audience. The lighting of your video, the nuances of the lighting, the mood you set can impact the energy and the focus of your audience. Could that affect audience retention and viewer retention? Absolutely. I think the quality of your production, your audio, video, and lighting has an aspect that relates to viewer retention, which connects directly to going viral and getting views. Effective communication involves showing, proving, and acting, and not just speaking. Metaphors and word pictures can vividly illustrate concepts and engage audiences. So here's a practical takeaway. You're planning out your next video. You're outlining the information. Tip 1, tip 2, tip 3. Could you go back through and say, what story could I include here? What metaphor could I include here, or word picture to illustrate this concept or tip? Sometimes I like to share the bare bones, like I'm outlining in Google Docs, the bare bones of my YouTube video, my video podcast. Then I go back through and say, how could I power this up? Could I put a story here? And this is interesting. After a presentation, 85% remember visual content after 3 hours, but only 10% recall oral content after 3 days. Steve Jobs' presentation of the first iPhone was impactful due to its live demonstration. Top TED Talks use visual aids from flip charts to photographs, but some people also don't use any visuals at all. And some of the most viral TED Talks was pure words, communication, voice, tone, stories, humor, whatever they included, which reveals that you can have an effective message without visuals supporting it. But we also see that this is a powerful tool that we can include in our communications. And a good practice is to change the visual expression every 2 minutes to keep the audience's attention. Now, I think that John Maxwell is applying this to the stage. If we apply that to the video, I think you should change the visuals a lot more often than every 2 minutes. We talk about every 7 seconds, every 5 to 7 seconds in a long form video. And those things visually could include switching to a different camera angle, having text pop up on screen, and then think about all the elements of your body movement and behavior. How visually engaging is the video, or how boring is the video? B-roll, clips, things that are changing and shifting, all of that can help keep the audience's attention. And when you do, YouTube rewards you with more views. And so I have a final quote to land the plane on this episode. But as a reminder, if you want to check out the 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication, John Maxwell is one of my favorite authors. His other books on leadership predominantly are really great for business leaders. I think all of us could grow as leaders. But I definitely would recommend that for content creators, sharpening the skill of communication will level up every single aspect of your creator economy business. And so we talk about a lot of good books, but this one is directly relevant. And I think the Audible is a good move to make for listening while on the go. And then also, if you're on YouTube, smash like, and thank you for every comment, every like, every subscription, every share that you do. It really means the world. Now, let's give you one final quote. Robert Greene is the famous author of the book Mastery, and this is his quote about mastery. Mastery is not a function of genius or talent. It is a function of time and intense focus applied to a particular field of knowledge. The encouraging thing is you might right now say, Sean, I don't feel like I'm a very good communicator. As you shared all these details, I just feel discouraged, like there's an uphill battle with so much to learn. And I think the encouragement when it comes to mastery is that mastery is not a function of genius or talent. And Robert did some deep research of all these different people that achieved mastery. It's a function of time and intense focus applied to a particular area. And friend, if you set your intention to become a better communicator, to practice, to study, to learn, to read, to listen, it's going to change everything.
Hey, coming up next is my exclusive interview with John Maxwell, the author of the 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication. But I have a question for you. Are you looking to start or grow a YouTube channel and build a successful and thriving online presence? Do you want to take advantage of the explosive growth that Goldman Sachs has predicted, saying the creator economy is going to double in the next 2 years? If you'd say yes, then I want to invite you to check out our weekly podcast called the Think Media Podcast. It's available on YouTube and on all of the audio platforms wherever you may listen to podcasts. I'll make sure to link to it in the show notes and the description. And every single week we upload 2 new episodes of unfiltered tips for building a profitable YouTube channel. If you're a business owner that wants to build a personal brand and get leads and clients from YouTube, you're going to love the podcast. Or if you're someone who's trying to figure out how to join the creator economy with a hobby, monetize a passion, it is packed full of not just deep dive interviews with other successful creators and entrepreneurs, but also solo rounds with tips kind of like you're getting in this video. And so check that out. I'll link to it in the show notes below. And now let's jump into my conversation with John Maxwell. I'm fired up because we're talking about the 16 undeniable laws of communication, and honored to have John Maxwell here today. But John, what is one of the most common communication mistakes that, if fixed, would improve my next video or my next presentation?
I love that question because I'm asked that question a lot. And I have an answer that really will help the people that are hanging with us today. And it's so simple and it's so hard. You know, some of the things that are very simple to understand are hard to implement. But I promise you, if you implement it and do this, it's just going to work. The number one thing, when somebody says, I want to be a great communicator, I want to really grow in my communication, I say, well, if you really want to be a great communicator, you have to get over yourself. You have to get over yourself. It isn't about you. Isn't supposed to be about you. I don't know why in the heck we ever thought it was about you. It's not about me. I was getting ready to speak to about 5,000 people a few years ago, and I was in the green room, and there were 2 or 3 other speakers. It was a kind of like a speaker program, I guess. And so one of them came up to me, and I was maybe 5 minutes away from going out. He said, what are you thinking about right now? I said, well, I'm thinking about the people. He said, I thought you'd be thinking about what you're going to talk about. No, I said, I'm thinking about the people. And what I'm thinking about is, how do I connect with them? How do I walk out on that stage and in the first 30 seconds to a minute, have them know that I care for them and that I'm there to serve them, to add value to them. And the success of our day is going to be about when they're done. I want them to walk out of that building and I want them to say, not John Maxwell's amazing. I want them to say, I'm amazing. I can do this. I feel empowered. I feel equipped. And so it's about the people. So when we did on the 16 Laws book on communication, Sean, when we did it, I insisted that the media people start the video with me being in the audience. I said, I want to be in a seat where the people sit, because all communication doesn't start on the stage at all. It starts in the audience. I have to look at that person in that seat, and I got to ask myself one question. What do they need? What are they looking for? How can I help them? I got to figure it out. I got to figure it out as quickly as I possibly can. So one of the things, for example, with practical stuff I do is when I walk into auditoriums, I sit down with the people that are going to do sound and lights. And I say, when I speak, I want the lights up. I want the lights way up. I want to see the people's faces. I want to be able to look at them. I want to be able to watch them visually so I can know where they are. And of course, really, honestly, stage people don't like that. They want to darken everything. See, they want the focus on me. They want the lights all on me. And I tell them now they have to have good lights on the speaker so you can see them visually. We're not going there. But it isn't about me. It's about the audience. You see, you take the lights off of the audience, guess what they do? They become passive. Now they think they're in a movie, or they're going to go hear some comedian talk, or they're now with the lights off the people and the lights on me, it's on me. But the lights on the people, now we're back to them. Now we can interact. Now we can respond. We can go back and forth. So you have to get over yourself. And in the beginning, I want to encourage all you people. When in the beginning, I had to work on that. In fact, I'll tell you how bad I was. I got out of college, and first of all, with all my speaking, hermeneutics classes, homiletics, all my classes, they taught me never use a personal illustration, and they taught me to make sure that you have the right posture. They just tried to fix me, kind of present me, I don't know, good, whatever that means. And I would go in, because I started off as a pastor, and I would go into the pulpit with a Greek New Testament. Now, I'm in southern Indiana talking to a bunch of farmers who basically just finished milking cows and put on their best clothes they got and came to church. I'm reading out the Greek, and I wore glasses because I thought glasses made me look more intellectual. I'm talking about stupid stuff, real stupid stuff. You know why? Because I thought it was about me. There's nothing about me when I speak. It's about the people, period. There is no other story to tell. And people can tell. I can listen to anybody speaking, and in 2 minutes, I can tell you how much of their ego is involved in their talk, how much they're trying to impress people versus how much they're wanting to identify with the people. And you got to identify with where the people are. If there's a gap, because I have a problem. I have a problem that every successful person has. People think that I'm better than I am. They think I'm smarter than I am. They put me on this pedestal. I got to get off of the pedestal. The pedestal doesn't do one thing for me. It just makes, okay, one more quick thing. Do I want fans or do I want friends? If I want fans, I'll make this gap as wide as I possibly can. I'll get up on that pedestal and it'll be all about me, and you're down there, and aren't you lucky to hear me? And my gosh, you may never hear me again. I may never see you. If I want friends, I got to close that gap. I got to get where they are. And they got to know more than anything else. Not that John writes books, not that John is a communicator. They got to know I'm the friend. Just want to help them. What can I do to help you? That's why I sit when I talk, because I want to be conversational. I want to have in fact, I don't want my people in front of me, although they are in front of me, because that's the way logistically auditoriums are. What I really want them to be, Sean, is I want them to be beside me. And I want them to be beside me so that as we take our journey together, as I talk, I can just share with them, oh, wow, did you see that? What's it? Let's stop for a moment. Let's talk about that. It's a spirit, it's an attitude, it's an identity. And when I'm done, I want them to walk out of that facility, and I just want them to say, hey, he helped me today. That's success. And if I didn't help them, then why did I show up? And more important, why did they show up? And then most of the times, why do they pay that kind of money to hear somebody that didn't help them? So I hope I'm communicating it well to you, because Sean, most speakers, they're so full of themselves that I look at them and say, really, you're just so amazing. Why don't you just stand alone in a room and just parade around. I don't know what you do. It's not about me. It's about the people, and they know.
Well, John, this is so inspirational, but it's also challenging. And, our community on this podcast is content creators, entrepreneurs and speakers and coaches, but people that are in this world of, we've all heard the term now, influencer. And this is so countercultural because this idea of being an influencer is it's about me, and it's about me getting views. It's about me getting a following. And so if this light bulb moment is going off for listeners, like, wow, I really want to put the audience first. I want to put the viewers first and get into this posture, not of selfishness, but of service. What would you recommend for practically developing that character and that mindset so that we stay in touch and stay connected and don't let our ego get out of control?
One of the things, when you write and you have a 50-year career like I have, there's a whole bunch of things you wrote in the beginning that you think, whoa, I wish I would have written that, because I've learned. I know better now. You know what I'm saying? I gave my best, but boy, my best wasn't really that good when I look back at it. And one of the first things I came out teaching was the fact that leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, let me give you the context. I taught that, Sean, because when I started teaching leadership 50 years ago, people thought it was position and title. In fact, I would say I'm going to do a leadership conference and nobody would have come because they said, I'm already a leader. Why would I come to a leadership conference? They thought leadership was a noun, not a verb. So they thought it was a title, it was a position, it was a place. And of course it's not, it's influence. So when I said leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, this was before social media. And I was just trying to help people know that the person in the room with the most influence in that room is truly the leader of the pack, whether they have the title or position or whatever. Today with social media, it's gotten completely twisted. And there are times, honestly, I say, I wish I would have never taught leadership as influence. Nothing more, nothing less, because there's a difference between influence on social media and how many people are clicking in and following and how many likes you got and all this stuff. That's not leadership at all. That's being famous for a moment. Now we're trying to grab the attention of somebody so that we can say this, hey, just because they checked into you doesn't mean that they're following you as far as a leader is concerned. In fact, if you want to know if you're really that good, ask them for money. The moment you ask for any kind of commitment, you're going to find out how many people are following you and how many people are just in love with something you just did that oh my gosh, did you see this? So popularity or the stuff that is in social media, that isn't the influence I'm talking about. You never know. Here's what I know. You never know the degree of your leadership influence until you ask for commitment. Only commitment shows if they are true followers of your leadership. You don't have any commitment in social media at all. So just because you had 1 million likes or whatever it is, that doesn't mean that those people are really following you. They just caught you for a moment and said, oh, that was interesting. And then they moved on to somewhere else. So, I said something and started something 50 years ago that now I'm trying to have to explain. And I think there's probably, in the context of when I taught it, it was very essential. Today, it's misunderstood because of the social media.
Speaking about the culture we're in today, why do communication skills matter with the specific challenges? And I'm curious, as you mentioned, you have this career, you've been through many different forms of media. And right now we're seeing 2.7 billion monthly active users on YouTube. This thing called the creator economy has become a real job. It's become a real career for people. And it's estimated there's 200 million content creators. Brands are spreading their message across these platforms. We're also in an election year and we're seeing all kinds of vitriol online. With this moment we're living in right now, why does communication matter and why is it important for the different walks of lives listeners could be in right now?
If a person came to me and said, John, if there's a skill I can develop to really help me be to have success in my life, what skill would you encourage me to develop? I would say you need to develop your communication skills. And the reason for that is very simple. It's through the act of communication that we persuade people. You remove that. What I've always said is leadership is very visual. People do what people see. And so, it's the Warren Buffetts who, when you say Warren Buffett, you think of money. You say John Maxwell, you think of leadership. But what does Warren Buffett say? The most important skill you can ever develop is communication. Because what do we have to do? We have to cast vision continually. We have to constantly lead through our communication. So the communication that I'm talking about is communication that helps people get better. If I, on social media, talk about who I am and what I've done, it could even maybe be entertaining. Maybe it's even funny. But when it's all said and done, did I really improve their life? Or did I just give them a moment of splurge entertainment, which nothing wrong with that, but they're not following you. Those people are here today and they're gone tomorrow. But real leaders know that we have to communicate with our example. We have to communicate with our words. In fact, our words and our example have to match. And when what I say and what I do isn't the same thing, I lose credibility, I lose trust. And so when you talk about social media, when you talk about sound bites, when you're talking about they look best under this kind of light and all that, can I tell you something? Nobody lives that life. When are we going to realize, hey, nobody lives that life? If nobody lives that life, why are we so sucked into it? Nobody lives that life. There's no credibility. There's no integrity, no authenticity. Now, do I think we should be the best we possibly should be? Absolutely. Do I think we ought to constantly grow and improve? Absolutely. Do I think we ought to learn better ways to communicate? Yeah, absolutely. All of that we're wanting to have. But it's for the reason of helping other people. Somebody said, John, the other day, they said to me, John, I know why you're successful. I said, well, tell me why I'm successful. They said, you're very successful helping people be very successful. Okay, I'll buy that. If I'm doing that, I want that. I want that. But I don't want to be very successful because people know me or like me or, I've got to live beyond something. We have to have gravitas and substance in our life. And what this world reminds me of more than anything else is a world that lacks total substance and would sell their soul for a moment of fame. It's very sad. That's not the communication we're talking about. We're talking about communication that equips people, empowers people, believes in people. It's that kind of communication. In fact, can I do one more thing on the book, Sean? I'm sorry. In the book, I talk about your best picture and your big picture. And your best picture or your best message is the message you're teaching right now, but your big message is how you see the people. And there are 4 questions in the book I talk about in communicating to people. There are 4 questions I have to ask myself with the big message. And the first question is what do I want the people to see? The second question is what do I want the people to know? The third question is what do I want the people to feel? And the fourth question is what do I want the people to do? It's all about the people. It's not about me. I didn't ask what do I want to see? What I want them to see. What I want them to see is their possibilities. I want to lift the ceiling for people. Because too many people, they enclose themselves in and are much smaller than they need to be. What do I want them to know? I want them to know that I value them. I want them to know everything I'm teaching, I value them. What do I want them? What do I want them to feel? I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel that they can do what I say. And what do I want them to do? I want them to apply. I want them to apply it to their life. I want them to multiply it through others. I think when you communicate with that picture, you're going to communicate to the top ability that you have of really serving the people well. And so I love having kind of like, this is the picture of what I want, so that when you communicate, you're constantly putting your DNA through that grid that hopefully works.
You just gave a framework that I think every one of us, if we're going to create a piece of content or a YouTube video, could ask 4 questions. What do I want the viewers to see the possibilities? What do I want them to know and learn? What do I want them to feel? That's probably a missing piece there because of thinking about not just information, but connection, the emotions, maybe even how I want to show up on camera. And then what do I want them to do? So there's a call to action, there's a practical. And that could even be true in a business sense. What do I want them to do next so they can go to a deeper level of transformation? Before my next question, and I want to dive into some specific laws from the book, but on the feel question, is there anything you do that as content creators maybe before we press record on the camera, before we step on stage, to get into the right mindset so we're not just on the logical side, but that we do tap into that emotional side. You may have touched on this because you said, I want to start in the audience. But yeah, how could we get there so we show up maybe in the right calm or the right state, the right mental place, and that we convey, again, not just information, but that emotions that connect with people?
It's such a great question, Sean. And I do go through a process. And the process is very simple. So all the people that are with us today can grab hold of it. And that is, in asking what I want the people to feel, I go back to when I was in the audience. And I ask myself, who helped me? And how did they help me? And what I discovered was two things when I was sitting in the audience. First of all, the person that helped me the most was the person who wanted to help me the most. That was huge. And I could tell that everything they did and said was to add value to me and to help me. So I get in this mindset, my whole goal is to help the Seans in the audience. Who are they? How can I help them? So it starts with that. But then I go back and I say, it is not what they said as much as how they said it. There's a way to teach and communicate that, again, puts them beside you as a friend. And there's another way to communicate which puts them in front of you where you become superior. So, for example, I never ask a question when I speak that people don't already know the answer. I mean, I would never speak and say, how many miles is the moon from the earth? Now, honestly, I don't know how many miles. It's a long way, okay? Well, but who gives a rip? Really, who cares? Now, why would I ask how many miles is it from the earth to the moon? For only one reason. I know the answer, and you don't. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you in a moment how smart I am and how I know something you don't know.
Question. Are you interested in learning the best strategies that are working right now to get views and subscribers on YouTube? Well, I want to invite you to our free 5-day Tube 1K challenge, where I'm going to be going through our 7-step YouTube success system entirely for free. Over 10,000 people have used this exact framework to start and grow successful YouTube channels, whether for their business, whether as a side hustle or as a creator, or even as a ministry and a nonprofit. And I'm going to be teaching through these 7 steps at tube1kchallenge.com. Every one of the 5 challenge sessions will include a strategy that you can immediately apply to start growing your channel, as well as a challenge, something to do that'll get you moving, taking action, and creating content that will lead to growth. Plus, there's going to be software giveaways, tech giveaways, and even a brand new YouTube camera. So if you're interested, just go to tube1kchallenge.com or click the link in the show notes. And now, let's get back into the episode.
I remember last year, I took some of my friends to Normandy, and we had a few day D-Day experience kind of thing there. And we had guides. We had some guides. And it was one of the guides, he would start telling the experience of Normandy. And then he'd ask a question. Do you know how many soldiers came in on the Omaha beach that day? Well, heck no. None of us know. It's our fish trip there. And of course, we don't know. And he'd say, all right, there were 6,332 soldiers. He'd talk 3 minutes of teaching and say, do you know what time it was that day when basically the battle was won or lost? No, we don't know. And he'd tell us. What I did is I watched my group. I had about 50 of us. I slowly backed out to close enough. I'm 5 feet from him, but I wanted to get behind him. And after the third question, every time he asked the question, everybody in that room bowed their head. They did what I did when I was in school. When the teacher asked a question, I didn't know the answer. I didn't look at her. If I knew the answer, I'm looking at her. I'm raising my hand. Here we go. Here, I got this one. Please, hey, you're not going to ask anything else I'm going to know all day. So please let me have my shot. They bowed their head. He was isolating, separating the people from him. This is what I'm talking about right here. So what he was making, what he made him feel is he made him feel inferior all day long so that he could make himself feel superior. You can't win and I can't win. I got to determine who's going to win and who's not going to win. Your win is going to be my win. But if you don't get a win, it's not a win for me. So you have to win first. It's not like win-win. I hear people say, I win, you win. No, it's you win, I win. And if you don't win, I don't win. And it's that mindset that when you go in and you talk to people, you're either talking about them or down to them, or you're talking with them and having a conversation. And if possible, they'd have microphones where they could keep interacting with you during the time. So yes, those two things, when I go in to get the feeling of the people, I put myself in the seat where I used to go and say, man, I hope I can learn something today. I really need some of this. That they know things I don't. I got to learn. So I think it's that spirit and attitude as you go in that makes sense to really connect with them.
It's so powerful. And I want to break down and ask some questions about a couple of the laws in here. And if you're listening to this and you haven't picked up the 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication, this is one of our favorite books. I think it's an essential book in everyone's library that's a content creator and that it communicates a message of any time. And it's kind of underrated because you wouldn't really think that it would in the YouTube world, because it's not one of those top, it doesn't appear to be a YouTube book, but it actually is almost like a Bible for content creators with these principles. And one of the laws is the law of content that states when you have something to say, people will listen. Break this down of what this law means, but you touched on this earlier. We're living in a world where there's so much information, but it seems like we're starving for wisdom. What's the law of content and how could we apply that to make the next thing we create better?
Well, content is more than just doing research and you're speaking on maybe I'm speaking on health. So I'm putting together a lesson on health. It's more than having information for the people. Information is something you give to people, but what you're really wanting is transformation. And information goes to the head, transformation goes to the heart. And so the communication we're talking about in the law of content, one of the things I teach is you cannot give what you do not have. So the best teaching, Sean, that I give is out of my life. It's not about me, but it's about my experiences that connect with where the people are. What makes stories work is when you tell a story, everybody goes into their story. Because, oh my gosh, I remember when something like that happened to me. So there's a connection. So the content that we're talking about, to me, I can remember so well. I was probably only 26. I was still in my 20s for sure. And I came to the conclusion that I was only going to teach what I truly believed and had experienced. That I just wasn't going to teach it. If it's something I had been taught, why would I teach it to someone else until I practiced it? Because wisdom isn't coming through information. Wisdom comes through experience. And wisdom specifically comes, Sean, through evaluated experience. My ability to take an experience and then evaluate it and say, what did I learn from that? If experience were the best teacher, which it's not. We hear that, oh, well, experience best teacher. I thought, really? If experience were the best teacher, Sean, everybody as they got older would get better. Everybody would, 100%. Because as you get older, you have more experiences. But everybody that's getting older, they're not getting better at all. In fact, a lot of them are getting worse. Experience is not the best teacher. Evaluated experience is the best teacher. My willingness to reflect and say, okay, what did I learn from that? When my children were growing up, I would ask them two questions. We would have experiences, not daily, but 3 or 4 times a week, we'd have some kind of experience. Maybe no big deal, but it's just a little experience, but experience. And I'd ask them 2 questions. What did you love? What did you learn? By the time they were 8, every experience they come, now, Dad, here's what we loved, here's what we loved. I'm not having to ask the question anymore because I'm now teaching them every experience has to be framed into evaluating and reflecting what did I get out of that? Because the experience itself doesn't carry enough gravitas to change your life. Evaluating it does. And I did the same thing with my grandchildren when we were talking earlier, and you got I think a 2-year-old and maybe a 4-year-old. You know what I mean? I promise you, especially with the 4-year-old, you start asking the question. If I ask my kids that question while they grew up, once I asked them 10,000 times, what'd you love? They just knew. We had nothing, no experience without, well, what did you love? What did you learn? And that is so essential, I think, in connecting and communicating with people. And if we, and that comes through so when I teach out of my life. It's what I call layered learning. I learn a little bit here, but later on you learn about the same subject, but a little different perspective, and you just start building until you have wisdom comes out of layered learning. Wisdom comes out of evaluating your experiences and applying the principles to your life. That's where wisdom is extracted from that. So when I teach, the more I can give them out of those experiences, the more wisdom I dispense to them, which allows them to very quickly grow to that area. In wisdom, it's kind of like information you write down on paper. Wisdom you write down on your heart. It's kind of like, I can't let that go. Yeah, I maybe wrote it on paper, but it's in the heart. This is where the change is coming. So in content, I just made a decision in my 20s that I'm going to live it, practice it, and then teach it. And that meant I didn't teach a lot when I was young because I had a lot to learn first before I taught. But then when I taught out of my learning, it was really life-changing. When I read a book, I want to read a book from somebody that's been successful in that world. And you know, my wonderful friend Tracy Morrow's with me today in the studio. She lives here in Colorado Springs, where I happen to be today. And so she came over, and you know, she wrote a book about marriage. She's got a great marriage, and she gave 100 examples in that book of how to make it work. Okay, that's wisdom. That's evaluated experience gone right that you can apply to your life. So in content, I want more than information, that's for sure.
I love that. One of the other laws is the law of storytelling. And when we started, you talked about, it's not about me, it's about them. So for listeners, they might think, okay, well, then if I start telling a story about me, though, how can I tie them in? And that's really what the law is. It says people see their own lives in our stories. So touching on this other law, do you have any kind of framework we can use so that while keeping the audience front and center and ensuring that connection, yet tapping into the wisdom and the lived experience so our content is more powerful with the stories that we inject? How do you find stories from your own life that illustrate principles and then tell them in such a way that they don't go too long or too much detail or too boring or just completely lose the audience and still make the listener the hero?
Well, I love that question. You know, I speak a lot internationally, and when I spoke internationally in the beginning, I really wasn't good at all. In fact, I was really poor. In fact, a funny story. One of my first international gigs was many, many years ago when our daughter Elizabeth, she was about 6 or 7. So this would be, my gosh, this would be 40 years ago. So I'm in Japan with a translator, and I'm trying to teach, and Margaret is with our daughter Elizabeth. And I've not been teaching long. I'm 15, 20 minutes into it. My daughter Elizabeth looks at Margaret and says, "Dad isn't very good over here, is he?" and I wasn't, because now I'm in a different culture. Now watch how this translates. So when I'm international, which I was 2 weeks ago, I was in Asia, then next week I was in Mexico. So I'm international a lot. When I get ready to tell a story, I'll ask people, like maybe I'm going to tell a story on giving an allowance to my children. Chores, maybe it's this. I'll ask them, I'll just stop and say, now let me ask you a question. When kids do work in your house, do you pay them money, or do you have an allowance? And in some cultures, they'll say yes, and so I'll tell the story. If they say no, I say, well, I'm not going to tell that story because there's nothing for them to relate to. Now, that is but when I learned to ask questions and not assume in a culture that wasn't mine, it made me a terrific. Now I'm a very effective international speaker, but I've learned to figure out what they know, because in communication and leadership, assumptions is the mother of all mess ups. If I assume you know something you don't know, and I go into teaching it, there's a disconnect immediately. I mean, you're already looking at your iPhone, your iPad, you're still in the room, but you're gone. And so I can't assume. So in telling stories, I make sure I tell stories that are very basic to life. Now, your audience never is your audience first. Your audience is your friends. You're out to dinner. So you tell the story. If it catches on around the table, it'll catch on in the arena. If it can catch on with 5, it'll catch on with 5,000. If it doesn't catch on with 5, it can't catch on with 5,000. So you throw them out. You find out the people. In fact, most of my books that I write, Sean, are from speaking. I remember I was in Dallas many, many years ago, and I was talking about failure, and I just made a statement. Really, we need to learn how to fail forward. And when I said the word fail forward, the audience went, ah. It was like an audible response. And I mentally check it off and say, that needs to be a title of a book, Failing Forward. So it's kind of like, try it in little groups. If it works with your friends around the table, then try it with people that you want to become your friends. And that really works. But assumption in leadership, you got to find you have to find your people before you can lead them. If you can't find them, you can't lead them. And I watch people starting to lead people and they've never found them yet. Or in communication, you got to find your audience before you can communicate to your audience. And you do that by asking questions, and the people will tell you. And now they feel like they are an active participant in your talk. It's the most amazing thing. They just now understand. So when people go highly scripted, I tell them, you either have to be awesome on foreknowledge, predestination, and understanding human nature. Because normally, if I script it the way I think that people want to hear it, it's not going to be near as effective as knowing where the people are and scripting it to what they are receptive to and what they're not going to have to assume over. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're staying in touch, and you need to be ready to pivot. If you go in fully scripted, then you might lose your audience along the way.
I want to stand up many times when people are scripting. I want you to stand up and say, I know you're doing this because your media people and all those people want all that stuff. I just want you to know none of us out here care. And so could you quickly get done so that we could get on with our life? Yeah, and they just go on and on and on. You know, it's like long introductions. I tell people, if you're good, you don't need a long introduction. If you're good, when you get up, within a minute, they know if you're good or not. So, in fact, anymore, I'm saying I don't want the videos. I don't want any of that stuff anymore, because they'll do these 2-minute hype things. And when I'm done, I'm a person of faith. It's kind of like God's coming into the room. This is going to be amazing. And I'm not that amazing. All they did is took my best script, my best sound bites, and put it together. And everybody thought, oh, my, wonderful, wonderful. His name is John. He's your friend. Could I just go out and talk to the people now? Because if you're good, you don't need a big introduction. You're just good. And if you're not good, Sean, a big introduction won't help you. I hear some people, and I say, that introduction was better than them. Could we just go back to the introduction? I'd like to see the runner. Do the video one more time. Take them off the stage. They're not any good. Just let me see the video. And I think this goes back to, why do we do this? We take ourselves too serious. I love it when young leaders, once in a while I'll do a round table, and they'll come to our house. We'll have dinner with them. And they love going to my office, and I just tell stories. My office is like a little museum, and I tell them stories. And one of the questions young ones like, and it's a great question, is how do I brand? I need to really talk to me about branding. How do I brand myself? So you know what I do, Sean? I take them over to 3. Now we're talking about cassette tapes. I'm an old man. I mean, your young people are with us right now. They don't know what a cassette tape is, but I take them over to 3 vinyl packets, just vinyl, with a plastic, a stick-on, like a stick-on thing with the title of what the tapes were about, okay? And I pull those 3 out, and I show that to them. They're as ugly as sin. I mean, you can't make ugly as bad as I made ugly. It's kind of like you would have to have a lot of thought in ugly to do what I did. And I look at, and I show them to them, because they want no branding. I said, aren't these the ugliest things? Oh my, they're ugly. They're just, oh my gosh, terrible. And so I said, they're awful. I'm ashamed of them, but I'm very proud of them, because they were my first shot. That was the first time I ever did it. I wasn't any good. They didn't look any good. They were ugly as sin. I said, oh, by the way, in 4 years, I sold 100,000 tapes. Why don't you practice getting good? If you'll get good, can I tell you something? Branding really will help you. But if you're not good, God nor branding can't bail you out. And I watch people, if I could just get myself positioned right. But no. You're not any good. God can't position you right. You're going to have to understand. You got to get good and then work on branding. It's like advertising. You hear the advertising, you go to the store and you say, it's nothing like the commercial. You know what? Let's go back to the commercial. Can I show your people? Could get your employees? Could we see the commercial? This is the way. So I think that the day that I quit worrying about Maxwell and I started worrying about how do I help people, period, end of story, and how can I be authentic and be myself, that was a day everything in my life took off. And it took off because I quit trying to sell me. And I started to say, no, I want you to know I value you. Let's get you where it wants to. Hey, one more quick. I'm known for Enjoy Life Club tapes. I'm known for leadership tapes. I mean, I was the first person that had a tape curriculum where people pay a subscription. After I did it, Hybels did it, Rick Warren did it, Focus on the Family did it, Campus. They were all, I was the first one. Now let me explain something to you. My leadership tapes were pink. Now think about this. I'm a male leadership tape, leader guy. My tapes are pink. Hey, for 11 years. I had the biggest subscription in the world. They're pink. I go to Willow Creek. My good friend Bill Hybels brings them out, and he makes fun of me. It was hysterical. It was hysterical about how could you do pink tapes? I'm on stage, and for the first time, I thought, I think that's the wrong color. Hey, the guy that was in my church that was an IBM guy, I said, go do some leadership. I'm going to do leadership talks, get together. His wife worked for Mary Kay. She picked out the pink. I'm doing 11 years of pink leadership tapes, and hundreds of thousands of people are listening to them, and I'm becoming a mentor, and they're pink. And I didn't even realize it was the wrong color until Bill sat there and said, how can you do leadership with pink? And I said, well, I don't know. Oh my gosh. Who had this? Is this you? Tracy had one of these. Look at this. This was the tape. This is a leadership tape by a male.
Yes.
Now, perfect example, isn't it? It's a perfect example because there's good stuff on this. It was helping people on this. They don't care what the color is. They want help. When are we going to learn? We got one thing to do and only one thing as leaders. Help people, add value to them, find them where they are, value them where they are, and now give them your best. And if we do that, Sean, we're going to help change lives. Pink tapes, purple. I love you having these, Trace. And they're just as ugly as sin. They're just like, and then people, it's also called enjoy with an I. Enjoy with an I. And everybody say, well, now, where did you get that word? Well, I got it really out of John 17, where my joy will be in you and it'll be filled with it's kind of a Christian kind of deal. And I had to explain that for you. If you have to explain your title, it's not a good title, but yet hundreds of thousands of people. Just get good. Could you just get good? Anyway, I had a little fun. Thanks for letting me have a little platform there to go nuts on just get good. But
John, we're so encouraged because
I love this, Tracy.
It's so awesome to hear the story because everyone is emphasizing how things look, branding, colors, websites, but the underlying quality, focusing on excellence and mastery and getting good. This is so encouraging. Well, listen, as we land the plane, I want to just touch on a couple things here, but I want to recommend, obviously we can't get to all of the laws. And so in the show notes, you got to pick up a copy of the 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication. So many very broad, big ideas and tactical tips that will improve everything that you do as a content creator, speaker, entrepreneur. But one of the laws is the law of leverage. And it talks about playing to your strengths. I really would love, John, if you spoke to people that could get discouraged, though, comparing themselves to other creators, other leaders, other communicators. Public speaking is one of the top fears. And somebody listens to somebody that's further on their career, they see them on stage, and right now they're seeing them online. Somebody that's honed their skills for maybe years or even decades, but now they're thinking about starting. So I'm starting a new business. I want to start my speaking career. I want to start a YouTube channel. But man, I'm looking around and what do I have to say? And they're discouraged about where they are. Maybe they can't even see the strengths they have. What would you say to those that are feeling that way?
Well, That I really value that question, Sean, because it's very intimidating. It's the exposure of greatness as far as TED Talks and all that stuff today. A person started out, they're just intimidated. It used to be that people didn't know. So wherever you were, whatever it was okay. But today, they're judging you and valuing you by all those stuff. And so I say three things to people that are getting ready to communicate. Number one is be brief. You're not good to talk. You're not good enough for a 30-minute talk. You know what I mean? Some of you would be lucky to do 3 minutes, but you got to be brief. You got to be, hey, one thing communicated well in 5 minutes is better than trying to do 3 things in 30 minutes that are not going to be. So be brief. The second thing is only teach what you have personally experienced that has changed your life. The miracle of transformation doesn't come through what I know. It comes through what I've experienced. Again, I'm a person of faith. A witness is a person that experienced God's life-changing grace in their life. I'm a witness to it. I stand up. It happened to me. If it didn't happen to me, I shouldn't be talking about what it's going to do for you. That's a credibility gap that we have in communication. If it didn't change me, why am I talking to you about having to change you? It has to come through me to go to you. It can't come from me to you. If it comes from me, I may be passing out information to you. If it comes through me, I'm passing out transformation to you. There's a world of difference between those two things. And the third thing is, everything you teach, make sure that it's simple enough that people can apply it to their life. Don't make them leave you frustrated. So many times I hear people, and they've talked about something that maybe was even interesting, but I can't do anything about it. There's nothing, there's no take home for me. There's no application for me. It's, my expression is put the cookies on the lower shelf so everybody can have some. I want everybody to have a cookie. And I want everybody to say, yeah, I can do something with that. Okay, that works for me. If you could do those 3 things and just be yourself, just be yourself. In fact, I tell people when they start communicating, they need to get up and say, now let me explain something to you. I'm really new at this, and I'm probably not really good. So let me do it. I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to talk to you about one thing that I think will help you. And if it helped you at the end, just raise your hand and tell me it helped you, because if it didn't help you, I probably won't do this anymore. There's something fresh about telling people you're not any good, because one, when they hear you, they're going to know that you're not any good. When the audience knows you're not any good, but you haven't admitted you're not any good, you've created a gap between your people. It happens all the time. I watch it. So just go in and say, in fact, I'd like you to help me. I'm going to do a 5-minute talk on this. I've never done this before. Would you do me a favor? Would you write down anything that I'm doing that could, if I could just change, could you give me any kind of improvement, maybe that would make me do better? Could help me out. The moment you ask people to help you, they become an ally. The moment you ask people to listen to you, they're on the outside. You got to figure, do you want them on the inside? Do you want them on the outside? If you'll do those few things in a world that now has exposure again to TED Talks and all the good stuff, it'll allow you to get started on a ground that you're at least comfortable enough that you can practice it enough to hopefully improve.
John, you've added so much value today, and we're so honored to have you on. If you made it this far in the video, let me just say you're a legend, and type ride or die in the comments, because this shows me you're really committed to your education. But here's the thing, we've been learning all about communication, but if you actually want to get access to my 7-step YouTube framework for free, just click or tap the screen to check out a video where I break it all down in under 10 minutes. My name is Sean Cannell, your guide to building a profitable YouTube channel. Hit the like button and then click that video, and I'll see you on the other side.